So what we do is, you would create a campaign, let's say for the year, where you say we want to focus on 3-4 core messages. Like you can't force people to consume more than that. And then we combine that with frequent and randomized phishing simulations. And those are like fake phishing emails, that you use to test, are people falling for it?
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley, in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Turing, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Hello, welcome to another episode of 20-Minute Leaders. Today we're going to be talking about cybersecurity, but from the lenses of a content creator and cybersecurity awareness. Meet Anna Collard, SVP of Content Strategy and Evangelist of KnowBe4 Africa. Anna is currently SVP of Content Strategy and Evangelist for KnowBe4 Africa, where she drives security awareness across the African continent. Collard founded security content publisher Popcorn Training, now part of KnowBe4, which is a South African company that promotes cybersecurity awareness by using innovative story-based techniques and gamification to make complex content simple to understand and easy to remember. Welcome, Anna. Anna Collard, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders, SVP of Content Strategy and Evangelist for KnowBe4 Africa. How are you?
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's great to be here. Thanks, I'm well.
Thank you for joining me from South Africa. Talking about cybersecurity content, I know the world of cybersecurity from the zeros and ones perspective, not so much from the awareness perspective. You're the winner of multiple awards and recognized globally as a cybersecurity leader, and you've been mentioned quite a few times, I believe, in the top 50 women in cybersecurity in Africa by a few magazines. So it's a huge privilege to talk to you today about your work and your understanding about what does it mean to storytelling with cybersecurity, but especially in the context of Africa. So Anna, walk me through a little bit about your own journey getting to this conviction that this is what you want to do, but also what does it mean to be a storyteller and content creation in the world of cybersecurity?
Yeah, I think that I'll have to actually take you back quite a long time because when I was a kid, I always used to draw cartoons. Like that was my thing. Like I made these little cartoon stories. And when I wanted to study, I said I want to do art, and my dad was like, "Nah, there's no money in it," So I had to do. And then I wanted to do languages. He's like, "No, there's no money in it." So I ended up doing international economics. And part of that course, it was like a 3-year BA equivalent, was to do an internship, in different countries. So I went to Singapore and South Africa. That's how I ended up here. But like the cybersecurity side of it also came more as an accident. Like I was a student, and like as all students, you sort of make money on the side through waitressing, and then I had this opportunity to work for Siemens, which is like a Germany-based, large international IT company, and they had like a thing called Siemens Student Program. So I ended up working there, and that paid better than waitressing. And that's how I got into cybersecurity. And I ended up writing my thesis in security, but from a business point of view. And that little piece of work got me into security full time. And the first 10 years, I think I just spent, sort of trying to keep up with all my engineering colleagues, because I didn't have a tech background. I came from the economic side. But I did a lot of sort of certifications on the side. And I worked for a big network integrator, sort of as the interface between product development, managed services, and sales. So I was sort of the interpreter between the tech and the business side. And I enjoyed that. I think
I have a feeling that the idea of interpretation is going to come up often in this conversation.
Yeah. And I think like I love learning, in general. Like I just enjoy learning new things. And cybersecurity is one of that field where you have to learn new things every day. And but because I was quite sort of more in the technical architecture side of things, and doing audits and assessments, as well as, I mean, in we call it architecture design, where you go into a big corporate and then you define where their security controls need to go in. That was sort of my job at the end. But on the side, like, in fact, during my honeymoon, I drew this whole cartoon story of like sort of security principles for non-technical people. And I took those drawings back home and I showed it to this customer that was based on site. Old Mutual is one of South Africa's biggest insurance companies. And I just showed it to them like as a joke, and they said, "No, this is great, Anna, like you should do this." And then I found these like animators who are incredible. Like they did work for like Disney and Nickelodeon. And I mean, first I tried my own animation and it's really hard work. So like I found them, and they're still, I mean, this was 10 years ago, so 2011. They're still with us today. And we just sort of met in a coffee shop and I said to them, "Look, there's a story, and how can I make this into like a little movie clip?" And then through this customer who said they wanted it, we also had to develop like a learning management system. And the customer really pushed me into taking this little side project that I had just in my mind, the story that I drew on honeymoon. And then that eventually became a business, because sort of I built it with the customer's input. We built the system with the customer's input. I did make sure that the IP remained mine, so I could take it to other clients who I've met over the years, working as a security consultant. And it sort of worked like, word of mouth, sort of, like they took my stories, and then it went into all the sort of bigger South African enterprise customers, like Telkom and the banks, and it was still only a side project. It was only 2 years later that I sort of registered it as a full-blown business, and I went full-time. And then a few years after that, we managed to get onto Gartner's Magic Quadrant, which was also quite a big deal. And then KnowBe4 got wind of us, and they acquired us 3 years ago. And sorry.
The world of content and cybersecurity and especially in Africa. First of all, what is KnowBe4 Africa, and how does content and storytelling and security play into this organization?
Yeah, so my company was called Popcorn Training, and we created basically stories to explain to non-technical people how to, like not fall for phishing emails.
And by the way, what did you learn from that? What is it? What are some tips for discussing technical issues with non-technical people?
The fact that it has nothing to do with technology. It's all about, if we talk about social engineering, which is really one of the biggest threats in the cybersecurity space, at least like affecting humans, they use psychology to trick us. And one of the things that I always teach people is, at the end of the day, it's all about using your critical thinking, like your prefrontal cortex, and not fall sort of victim to your own emotions. And that's all they do, is like they send you something that either sounds really great or it causes like a low grade form of fear. And as soon as those, amygdala nerve centers trigger, you don't think critically anymore, and you're more likely to, open that attachment or hand over information. And really good social engineers, that's what they do, is they try and get you to hijack your critical thinking. So at the end of the day, it's actually about being mindful, taking a breather, and thinking before you do anything, before you react to anything incoming, before you hand over anything that's, over the phone, for example, because it's another good way of doing social engineering. And unfortunately, not to trust your emotions, like to be more,
right,
slow and rational.
What was the most efficient form of communicating this information? Is it written, video, drawings, face to face?
So it really depends also on the audience. We obviously built a lot of stories into videos just because it's more, it's the easiest way of communicating nowadays. And this was even before, this is like I said, 10 years ago, before the sort of YouTube and that kind of, there was YouTube around, obviously, but it wasn't as big then. But I think nowadays even more so, you have to make it really short. Attention span has obviously, gone down. So if you have a message, you need to bring it across within a minute if you can. And sort of really succinct, but at the same time, you need to engage people's emotions so that they pay attention, that they're interested in it. So it's more of a psychological game, really. And you have to use marketing and communication techniques to get people to want to listen. I mean, if you just send out like some random IT security policy message, everyone is like, oh gosh,
Yeah.
So it is more important to make it personally relevant, make it a bit fun if you can, use humor, use story-based techniques. All of that is sort of, more effective than your...
Right. Now, what do you have to do as sort of the interpreter in this situation to both understand the material, but then to be able to convey it in a way that is, I guess, either not entertaining, but is at least interesting enough for other people to really think through it, and then because you're also asking them to adopt a certain behavior afterwards, so it's not it doesn't just end there, right?
Exactly. And I think that's a good point. At the end of the day, we're wanting to change behavior. So awareness is sort of the first step. Like you need to get people from ignorance to, okay, I get that now, but how do we get them to actually change their behavior? That's a whole different ball game. But at the interpretation part, I think one thing that I use a lot of is analogies, sort of, or metaphors, to take something technical, but then create a sort of real life story around it to explain those concepts in a simple way. Because so many people, even though we everything is digitized, but there are a lot of people that still don't understand a lot of the basics, or they don't want to understand, like, for example, how to, like the way a URL is constructed, like people really don't know that, even though you think it's so simple, but you can't just tell people, you need to figure out how to spot this phishing link if they don't know what a legitimate link should look like. They have to then use analogies, and I created this whole analogy of thinking of it like an address, and then you have the .co.za or .com as like your country, and then you have to really build it up as like you would explain it to your grandmother, for example, but do it in obviously a non-patronizing way and in a fun way if possible, so that even the most non-technical person will get it.
And how do you measure yourself whether you're successful? Because I guess one of the most difficult challenges here is you don't really know whether they understood it, whether they enjoyed it, whether they're implementing it later, right?
Well, the KnowBe4, the company who bought us, they obviously sort of the leaders in the security we actually call it security culture space. And their platform is quite powerful in that the users can rate the content. So you get direct feedback from the users with, the stars or like sort of thumbs up and comments as well. And then what we do is, and this is what talks to that whole behavior side, is we don't just use content by itself. Like you have to combine the content with simulation techniques such as phishing simulations. So what we do is, you would create a campaign, let's say for the year, where you say we want to focus on 3-4 core messages. Like you can't force people to consume more than that. And then we combine that with frequent and randomized phishing simulations. And those are like fake phishing emails, that you use to test, are people falling for it? But also it's sort of on-the-job training, because even the most sort of skeptical person, they're often actually in the IT departments like, oh yeah, I won't fall for that. If they do fall for it, it's the best type of learning, right? Because then they like get the whole oops, kind of thing. And then we can also teach them the red flags. And that's one metric you can use to measure sort of behavior. But then we also do something called the security culture assessment, where we actually go in and scientifically test those. And there's 7 dimensions that make up a security culture, that ranges from people's attitudes to their level of knowledge, to the way they feel that they're accountable or not accountable for security. And that can be done on an annual basis as well, to see, well, how do I actually, compare to how I was last year? And also, how do I compare against industry benchmarks? Where is it really bad? Like if the attitude, for example, is really bad, then you should try and do something to change that, right? Get people to be more positive. So that's another good way of doing it, because at the end of the day, you can't manage something if you can't measure it.
So how many years would you say you're an interpreter by profession?
A little bit, yeah. Yeah, I think I've been there my whole year. Like, even as an entrepreneur, at the end of the day, you have to take a lot of stuff that's complicated and then you simplify it to down what actually
Yeah,
matters, right?
it sounds like a skill that goes a long way. But do you feel that, in the world of cybersecurity, has it been getting easier or harder to do this job, to navigate through the content and through the different challenges in a way that non-technical people will understand?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it has become easier in some way because it's so, I mean, when I first started in cybersecurity, it was such a niche area, like,
Right,
and
right,
now everybody is sort of in stuff. It's massive, like it's a really big industry. So more, and there's also more common sort of public mainstream media awareness and knowledge, especially now. And I mean, with the latest breaches and ransomware attacks that really make it into front page media, sort
right.
of. I think it like people have a better understanding of it in general, so it makes it easier. But then the complication comes in when you then really go down into the nitty gritties, because now at the, like, even though I said at the beginning, it's about thinking and sort of not falling for social engineering attacks.
Right.
There are a couple of other basic controls that everybody should do, like using multi-factor authentication, for example. But yeah, I think it does get, as we use more technology and it's sort of all over our lives, you have to be more aware of it, and there's more to think about. So I think it has become more complex.
So I'm hearing you say
Actually.
that there's an interesting balance, that on one hand it's becoming easier in the sense of people are starting to understand the jargon, they're understanding the importance of it, and so there's some language, there's some foundation to work on. At the same time, we're going deeper into the possibilities. Things are becoming trickier and more complicated, and therefore the content itself may be a little bit more convolutive. I don't even think that convolutive is a word. Maybe it's convolutive. But I really want to thank you for these 20 minutes. They're really, really great. And I have a few more questions about you, not about cybersecurity or content. I want to take you back to your childhood. What really fascinated you as a kid before you discovered cybersecurity?
Art. I love drawing and painting. I still
Yeah.
do that on the side. I love doing that with my kids. And I think that was something that I did. I'm an introvert, so you can put me in a room with some, I don't know, something to draw on, and that keeps me happy.
I
So
love it.
that, yeah.
And what inspires you today?
Africa does. I think, like, Africa is such an amazing continent. We have like the youngest population. The average age here is 19. There is a lot of sort of misconception that it's just third world. It's not. Like, we definitely have different levels of wealth and sort of economic opportunity. And I think it's the right place to be.
I love it. And so when you're doing your work within Africa, I guess, right? Most of the work is within Africa.
Yeah, right now, yeah.
Do you anticipate that the work that you're doing within Africa for KnowBe4 is that a different type of work than you would necessarily do, let's say, for the United States or for Europe?
I mean, we have to try and keep content regionally relevant. So,
Right, regionally relevant.
yeah, so we try and use local accents. Funny enough, though, is that sometimes the South African accents, the Americans like it. So so even the sense of humor, which I thought, ooh, it's a bit cheesy, but they seem to like it. So it translates quite well across the pond, even.
Very, very cool. And last question, what are 3 words you would use to describe yourself?
I try to be present. I mean, I try, it really is. So I'm huge into yoga. That's one of the things. I try to be creative and have fun.
I love it. Anna, thank you very, very much. Thank you for the great work you're doing, disseminating this information, making it accessible. It's so important. I'm personally a little bit terrified about where we're going with cybersecurity, and we need people to be informed. And a lot of the times, the foundations, and what I'm hearing from you, the foundations that you're setting with people, they can really save organizations, and those organizations at the end help save us. So thank you, Anna, for everything, and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Michael. It was great
Thank you.
talking to you.